the Emergency Measures Act as their source of authority for infringing upon the rights of Canadians, and that is completely false. On the first page of the Emergency Measures Act, it clearly states that this act is subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They do not have the authority. That is a blatant lie. And I suggest to the politicians out there.
I mean, she already knows. Look directly into the camera. He's interviewed her and just like, I have a message for you, Doug Ford. Come at me. Come at me with all you got. What you got, bro? I'm waiting. I'm waiting. I do want to quickly talk a little bit about our good friend Doug Ford. If you don't know Doug Ford, he's currently in charge of Ontario, Canada's largest, most populous province. Sorry, not large by size, but large by people. Lots of people. Here. That's a good title if ever I saw one. So this was a headline I saw. Ontario Premier refuses to commit to further travel measures as stay-at-home orders lifts in most of the province. Ontario Premier Doug Ford indicated that while everything is on the table, it may not be practical to implement further travel measures such as road checkpoints to prevent people from living in lockdown areas from traveling to regions where stay-at-home orders have been filled. It's hard to place an area where close to 50 million people, the size of California and Texas. There's the reality. We won't put in roadblocks. Long story short, Doug Ford is a polarizing figure. You may know him as the brother of Rob Ford, which is unofficially, I guess, just known forever now as the crack-smoking mayor of Toronto. So this is Doug Ford, who is now the premier of Ontario, in charge of the entire province, Canada's probably second wealthiest province, I'm going to guess, after Alberta, because Alberta's got all the oil. But anyways, it's the most populous one. It's where the most people live. Toronto's the largest city in Canada. And he's also someone, since he got in, who just loves to slash. He loves to slash. By which I mean cutting all government programs. Just get rid of them all. It's weird. It's kind of like he got into power, and I don't know how. What the fuck is wrong with you? But he got into power, and when he got into power, it was at a time when Ontario was becoming a beacon for the rest of the country. They were doing things like implementing a $15 minimum wage, and I was like, that is so cool. And all of a sudden, he gets to be in charge of this entire province, and is like, I'm going to gut the province of all its social services. Ford's government cancelled a raise for low-wage workers. The Ontario PC government passed the so-called Open for Business Act last year, which cancelled the minimum wage increase, restricting the right to unionize and limited paid sick days. Economists pointed out even with Ford's tax credit for low-wage earners, workers would still be left $1,000 out of pocket without the minimum wage increase. Ford's government made dangerous changes to apprenticeship rules. The Open for Business Act also stripped protection for apprentices, leading to an increased risk of workplace injuries. Ford's government withheld data on campus sexual assaults. Student researchers at the Silence is Violence group accused the Ford government of dragging its feet on releasing data about sexual assaults in the University of Toronto. Ford's government ignored climate change. Ford teamed up with other right-wing politicians across Canada last year, calling for the federal carbon tax to be scrapped. Ford even repealed Ontario's cap and trade program, but offered no alternative plan to combat climate change. The Bank of Canada estimates ignoring climate change will cost taxpayers close to $20 billion or more per year, and this is on the conservative side now. He actually had this great policy where he was standing in front of gas stations with a sign saying that the Liberals are trying to tax you more at the pump. So it's fun. It's fun. You see, climate change is real. And don't get me wrong. I think putting the bill of climate change, such as carbon taxes, directly on the consumers, rather than tackling the companies that are responsible. You know, the 100 companies that are producing about 70% of all CO2 emissions. They are the ones that we should be attacking. But at the end of the year, there are programs in which carbon tax does work. You can look to British Columbia, for example, of a highly effective way of utilizing carbon taxes to put it back into things like green energy. That's kind of the idea, right? Doug Ford gave a wink and a nod to the far right. Ford appears to be rubbing shoulders with neo-Nazis, members of the alt-right. Last year, he posed for a photo with the failed white nationalist Toronto mayoral candidate, Faith Goldie. Because, Faith Goldie, she's attractive, and she's good on the eyes, Stephen Crowder likes to say she's fine, and all that stuff, and then Doug Ford says the same thing. And by the way, this is not me just doing a bit. Alex Jones was like in love with Faith Goldie. And around the time that Doug Ford is appearing with Faith Goldie, he starts doing these segments that are like, well, yeah, she's a very attractive conservative woman, and that's why she's being silenced, because she's sexually attractive to me, and clearly she has eggs that would enjoy my fertilization. Ford's government gerrymandered local elections in Toronto. That's right, everybody. Gerrymandering has been exported to Canada. The Ford government rammed through legislation last year to radically withdraw Toronto's electoral boundaries 2 months before the city's local elections. After the Ontario Supreme Court ruled Ford's gerrymandering was unconstitutional, the Premier invoked the notwithstanding clause to override Canada's constitution. Human Human rights group Amnesty International said Ford's actions were a contemptuous step in the disregard for the Charter of Rights. So he actually shit on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Canada. Ford's government cracked down on student protests. He issued a directive vowing to strip universities of funding if they didn't stop students from protesting alt-right speakers and anti-abortion demonstrations. The speech policing directive was also called for disciplinary measures. Ford's government scrapped Ontario's sex ed curriculum. He got rid of sex ed, calling it a failed ideological experiment. Because, just keep teaching kids about abstinence. That's working, right? That's really working. Like young children, teenagers who have all these hormones suddenly injected into their bodies and experiencing erections at a rate they never knew was possible. Suddenly it's like, well, what you're going to want to do is just don't do whatever your body is telling you to do. Just stay away. Just stop. Just don't do that. Instead, read the Bible. Nothing funner than reading the Bible. So if you're thinking about masturbating to pornography, don't do that. Just read the Bible. Open the Bible and see if that helps. See if that's going to help. What sin is coming from you. Ford's government promised to roll back laws protecting the rights and freedoms of women. During his election campaign last June, Ford appeared socially conservative base by promising to roll back 4 laws protecting the rights of women. These include measures which protect women from harassment outside of abortion clinics. Ford's office interfered with the appointment of the Ontario Provincial Police Commissioner. Back in December, Ford appointed family friend Rob Taverner as the new OPP Commissioner. Oh, yes, if I didn't mention it already, Doug Ford, deeply intertwined with the police. He loves the police, which is kind of ironic because he actually used to be a drug dealer. In high school he was dealing the marijuana. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. So he's cut a lot of things. He canceled a 10-year contract with a beer store. He passed a bill ending Ontario's 10-year contract with the beer store on June 6th. The contract was signed between 2015 with the Liberal government and the beer store, which owns 3 multinational companies, Labatt, Molson, and Sleeman. Under the agreement, with few exceptions, only the beer store can sell packs of beer larger than 6 packs. It seems like a strange small thing, but it was just something that he put along. He frozen public wage sector increases of 1% for the next 3 years. Public sector jobs, such as university and hospital employees, for example, will have their annual wage increases limited to only 1%. And make sure the sector workers currently report at 1.6%, basically not allowing that to increase with inflation. An end to building height limits in Toronto. I'm not sure if I really take a stance on that. $500 million in municipal funding. Eliminated Ontario Arts Council funded Indigenous Culture Fund. Well, I can see them slashing that, but you don't need arts. You certainly don't need Indigenous art. Yeah, get rid of all of that. Ending the transition child benefit. Oh, really? Help families on welfare feed and clothe their kids, provides up to $230 per month per child who receive the welfare, but don't receive Canada or Ontario child benefits. Parents have recently lost their jobs or refugee claimants. The Toronto city manager says the Toronto's family shelter system experienced increased demand for families who lose it and unable to secure their housing. Cut millions to artificial intelligence research. Don't want the AI taking over. 70% provincial funding to the Anishinaabe and Ontario Fisheries Resource Centre. Annual funding cut to stem cell research. Well, yeah, because that's a tool of the devil. Unclear amount of funding from violence against women shelter services. Well, yeah, but I mean, come on, they should learn self-defense already. Phasing out Ontario's enhanced driver's license program. Well, I mean, enhanced drivers, what does that really mean? The e-health budget, cutting that. Well, I mean, come on, people don't really need access to the internet and being able to diagnose themselves. It just causes more fervor. Health policy research funding. Yeah, but who needs health research? Ministry of Labor's Prevention Office budget. Well, it's Ministry of Labor. Tourism budget for Ottawa and Toronto. I guess this one worked out because tourism's not really a thing anymore, so you save some money there. Anyways, if you haven't got the idea already, Doug Ford, he fucking sucks. He absolutely sucks. He's just the worst. Okay, and I'm impressed that he's lasted as long as he has. The other thing is that we have Doug Ford appearing in the age of COVID. So he arrives at this time when you may have imagined most people who are on the conservative side of the aisle want everything to open. Now, Canada took a bit more of a progressive stance compared to the American counterparts when it came to both its treatment of its citizens. Everyone got a $2,000 quasi-UBI program from the government while they were undergoing the first couple months. I think the first 7 months of the pandemic, which was necessary if you're going to tell people, hey, by the way, you have to live at home. Okay, but if you can't work from home or if your job doesn't allow you to do that, if you're a frontline worker, then that's kind of a big middle finger to you. It's like, well, yeah, live at home, but also hopefully you can pay rent. Hopefully that whole thing works out. I mean, the two can't be done simultaneously. You have to either provide for the citizenry so that they can exist in their houses because that's what you want them to do, and or you have to change this policy. Obviously, one of the two. He's been absolutely terrible about that. Doug Ford has been pushing for mass evictions. He's been pushing for the ability for landlords to be able to evict their tenants. This has not been allowed to pass so far, but it's still something extremely frightening. It's not the kind of government you want in power. Although, you know what's funny? Conservative media in Canada, which is basically Rebel News, it's like the equivalent of I don't know, kind of like Crowder, Tim Pool-esque because it's online exclusively. They hate Doug Ford now because of the lockdowns. because of the lockdowns that he's doing. Yeah, Breitbart's a good way. Because of the lockdowns, Doug Ford is now the enemy of the far right media.
Oh, I'm just here. I'm hoping to scrum Premier Ford. Oh, why is that, sir?
I don't think so. I'm just his detail. I don't know.
So Canadian, eh? Oh, I don't think so. No, come on there, buddy. No, we're not gonna allow that now here. No, not a good time.
Oh, you're
You want me to communicate that with
I understand he was here for a press conference, right? You're his driver, I guess, or?
not here to be interviewed.
Oh, okay. Well, you approached me, sir.
No, I was just wondering because you were looking around. I was just wondering.
Oh, okay then. I'm just wondering what door he's going to be coming out of. Okay.
Whoa, what a story, Rebel News.
Stephen
Harassing a
Menzies
security
here
guard.
at Queen's Park in downtown Toronto. Well, folks, Doug Ford just gave a rare press conference, rare given that it is a Saturday, and basically the impetus of the press conference was to announce that the province is extending the crowd gathering and social distancing guidelines to the entire province, not just Peel Region, the City of Toronto, and the City of Ottawa, which in a way is staggering. It's a flip-flop from just 48 hours ago.
Oh, you're noticing the hat. Yes. Oh, yes. That's what the kids call the drip, I believe. I believe this is the drip. Yeah, so you're experiencing the drip in real time. This is some Canadian far-right drip, okay?
When these three regions were specified as the hotspots.
I don't know if he's so much going for a cowboy as he is a slave trader. I think that's kind of the look. I'm guessing kind of maybe a Dutch slave trader. That's the essence of what I'm gathering there.
I guess the entire province is deemed a hotspot, but certainly anyone that knows Ontario, the urban south is miles apart, figuratively and literally, than the northern region.
Is this Canada's version of Nathan Robinson? No, quite the opposite. It's more if Nathan Robinson was a far right-wing pundit who decided to call this a news segment by standing in front of a political building waiting for someone to emerge. He's waiting for Doug Ford to emerge, by the way, because he just wants to harass Doug Ford. So instead, he's taken to harassing Doug Ford's security detail. And again, this is a weird thing for this segment because I'm here shitting on Doug Ford, telling you how bad he is, and I'm also showing you the right-wing media that is shitting on Doug Ford because Doug Ford isn't opening up society quick enough for them.
The SUV that I was following along, he was going.
And do you think it's hard to fill a full day's worth of news on CNN? Imagine what it's like to fill 4 minutes of news for Rebel Media when they have no story.
Door to door, and it looks like his chauffeur driver outsmarted me. There's only so much ground I can cover here at Queen's Park in terms of the entrances and exits, and clearly Doug Ford doesn't want to take questions from Rebel News. And I say that because for months now we've been going on the telephone line to ask questions like the other journalists, and we never get chosen. Funny that. In any event,
That's kind of because you've made a name for yourselves in conspiracy theories that even the right-wingers of Canada don't want anything to do with you. And I don't blame them, by the way. There's a really funny interview where Jagmeet Singh is being asked a question. And then I was like, I'm sorry, who are you with? And he's like, Rebel News. He's like, oh, yeah, I'm not going to dignify that. And then just moves on to the next actual journalist. Because, yeah, Rebel News is just conspiracy theory, right-wing, far-right nonsense.
That gets a pass because obviously the Wuhan virus is very socially aware. It would never infect people with those two groups.
The Wuhan virus.
But like I said, it is very interesting. I can understand Justin Trudeau avoiding our queries. He's a liberal. Doug Ford, I thought, was a conservative, so much of a conservative that he actually pitched a show for Rebel News.
Here's a pitch for you. Wear some chapstick, motherfucker. God damn, those are some dry lips.
MPs say hate speech is constraining public discourse. I love that juxtaposition. Speech is constraining speech, they say. That's Orwellian. But hate speech, I mean, that sounds pretty bad, sounds pretty hatey.
Orwellian. If you didn't also know this, it's both the right wing in Canada and the right wing in America that are hyper-focused on cancel culture right now. And I'm assuming this is just going to be the way. I'm seeing this more and more out of the United States. I'm like, the US is constantly, Steven Crowder's talking about cancel culture. Tim Pool's talking about cancel culture. Tucker Carlson's talking about cancel culture. Dave Rubin is talking about cancel culture. Everyone is so hyper-focused on cancel culture.
And you don't support hate in the article I read. The members were speaking during a virtual talk on online hate hosted by Friends of Canadian Broadcasting, an advocacy group that monitors developments in TV and radio, and the Samara Centre, which advocates for citizen engagement. Users who post hateful and abusive comments disrupt public conversations.
Yes, I was going to say in the UK it's got to be ramping up. I can already see that, right? Boris Johnson jumping in front of the camera. It seems like certain individuals may or may not have said some of the naughty words, but what's truly going to be banned in this platform? Protoplasmic jellies and all this. Yes. Police caught on body cams celebrating the abuse of COVID power. Whoa, I don't know where I stand on this. Oh, and I think they've hired a New Zealand or an Australian guy.
I do not have to answer.
Okay. If you refuse to answer, you're going to leave me with no choice but to arrest you.
You're going to arrest me. Okay, hold on a second. Let me make this.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a sec.
That's a little over the top, I'd say. If you don't tell me where you came from, where you're going, and why you're in your car with your...
Oh, I got to agree. Yeah, it's true. He's not wrong. It spreads to the UK as well. The government wants to regulate the universities what they can and cannot say. It's the future. It's the future. Cancel culture is upon us all. Rebel.
Where's my phone, Doug Ford?
It was boring. I wasn't listening.
They're lying to you.
Well, I'm with Kellyanne Wolf, and wow, what a brave lady she is. She's gone on record as saying she is the organizer of this event. So that means she faces fines starting at $10,000 going all the way to $100,000, maybe even jail time. Who knows? Kellyanne, are you worried? I see some people in chat saying that
is she a part of MAD, Mothers Against Drinking and Driving, as well as being anti-mask? No, you see, she's reappropriated the MAD logo to make it one of her own. You'll now see it says something completely different, right? I believe it's Mothers Against Distancing. Mothers Against Distancing. You heard that. So yeah, just get in real close and spit all over your fellow mothers. Mothers spitting all over mothers because they're against social distancing.
That as the afternoon progresses, law enforcement is going to come in and give you a 5 or 6 figure fine.
No, I'm not, and I'll tell you why, David. Under Section 2C of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, we're protected to protest. That's why Doug Ford, everybody has to start paying attention to the language that politicians use. Okay, he spoke of parties and gatherings like that, and social gatherings. This is not a social gathering, this is a protest, and you are 100% protected under your charter rights, which he cannot infringe on. He does not have the authority to infringe on.
I agree. I'm for peaceful protests. I'm just a little bit more curious what you're protesting.
And he was asked the question if the social gatherings include protests, and he said yes. So that's completely contrary to what you're saying. Absolutely. I guess this is something for the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. So I encourage Doug Ford, if he wants to find somebody, come and find me. I encourage you to. So, because I will set a precedent across this entire country as to what our laws mean and what they stand for. See, the government, David, the government likes to try and call upon the Emergency Measures Act as their source of authority for infringing upon the rights of Canadians, and that is completely false. On the first page of the Emergency Measures Act, it clearly states that this act is subject to the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms. They do not have the authority. That is a blatant lie. And I suggest to the politicians out there.
I mean, she already knows, look directly into the camera. He's interviewed her and just like, I have a message for you, Doug Ford. Come at me. Come at me with all you got. What you got, bro? I'm waiting. They become a little bit more familiar with their laws, considering they're supposed to be representing them and the people.
Well, Ontario Premier Doug Ford might refer to...
Again, this fucking clown operation. Like, this is what you have to listen to if you're a far right. I don't know. Is this supposed to be for kids? Because it's on YouTube. Do kids share this with other far right conservative kids? It's like, yeah, I really hate the lockdowns. Me too, bro. Have you seen the latest Rebel Media video on the subject? Hosted I Am Exempt.
Kellyanne Wolf and her fellow protesters as a, quote, bunch of yahoos, end quote. But one thing is certain, Yahoo Nation is not backing down. They've been assembling on the lawns of Queen's Park since late April.
Like, at least Fox News knows, like, you know, presentability is going to be some of the stuff. You gotta make sure that you got your best attire on. Kellyanne Wolf rocks. So glad she's taking this on. It's absolutely right. Protests are legal. We have the right to say and stand up against corruption. You do have a right to protest, absolutely. So yeah, it's really funny to me that the right-wing media despises Doug Ford too, because everyone hates Ford. Yes. If you want us to advertise your channel or work, please go to weareserfs.com and email us a 20 to 30 second ad, and we'll take it on to the end of one of our videos to help promote your leftist channel or progressive something. Whatever you do.
To our gods, An-Ra, Xander Corvus, Schlatsky, we look to the stars for your divine guidance. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, we are merely puppets for your amusement. To our lords, Trevor R., Alexander Thaler, Hans Josephine, Ryan Lubin, Timothy K. Meeblebeeps Jr., Bisexual Black Gamer, and Tofox, we shall carry your banner into the fog of war. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Political Puppy, Jimmy Bignuts, Andreas Chiringuito, Yoppie, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Thomas Barrington, J. Fraser Cartwright, Goofalankius, Melissa Murphy, Nicholas Marks, Radical Maniac, The Great Pudini, Kale Kotka, Anthropophagic, Serene 42, Chronic de Hemphog, Phone Jenny, Incosin, Constance Joyce Lacheris, and Ramon Acosta, we drink with you and we salute you.